All right, gentlemen, we are live. Good evening. I'm back home in San Francisco now after a rock star weekend with my client Rodney. That's what we will be going over in today's live stream. I'll be breaking down his journey, his coaching experience, and the highs and the lows and everything in between. We just finished wrapping it up last weekend, and it was quite the experience. Yeah, he was flying with his skill set by the end, but it was a rocky road, and I'm excited to go over it in this live stream. Firstly, just want to send a big shout out to Ian because he just dropped a message in the group chat today. And he mentioned that while he was out in Bangkok, he was dating a girl that he had brought on a couple of dates. They were making out at the bar a couple different times, and then he got a text from her today saying that she wasn't interested in continuing things with him. So he was pretty beat down. But it's funny because he's in a different time zone. So I got a text from him after that once I woke up, and he was saying, "Dude, I just hooked up with a girl. It was amazing. I just met her, blah, blah, blah." So you'll get more details when I do a joint live stream with him in the near future. But yeah, just fair play for putting yourself back out there, even though you had that gut punch immediately after. You continued approaching, and then he had his great time out there in Bangkok. So what a series you're putting together, man. I'm having a good time following it on your channel. So again, this live stream is dedicated to Rodney. It's really just going to be a recap. I've actually got a call scheduled with him right after this live stream here where we're going to be going over some more of his footage. But firstly, if you're curious who I am, my name is Ephraim. I'm 25 years old. I'm from the United States, and I help busy, introverted guys who have it all on paper. They've got a shiny career, they've got money in the bank, and they look all right. They don't have to be look smacks. And I help these guys, seemingly who should be doing good with women, but somehow feel lonely still and don't have things sorted in this area of their life. I help them go from being lonely, swiping on apps, forcing themselves into loud environments like nightclubs where they don't flourish. And I teach them how to go about things the old fashioned way, how to walk over to women that they see in public when they like them, and how to present themselves and line up dates the old fashioned way, my preferred method, daytime cold approach. So if you're already familiar with my content, or if at any point during this stream you've heard enough and you want to speak with me on a deeper level to see if you and I'd be a good fit for coaching for you so we could change your life, then feel free to click the link in the description below so we could schedule an application call. So, Rodney. So, Rodney, 33-year-old American guy, and let's see, background, he's part Ethiopian, I think part or full Ethiopian. Good looking guy, yeah, nice long dreadlocks, cool Rastafarian kind of look as he described it himself. He's into debating, he's a data analyst. So, once again, great style, by the way. I was blown away when he showed up in New York and he had this cool outfit on. So, again, a classic client, yeah, somebody who on paper, right, you look at the guy and you'd think, yeah, why would this guy have issues with dating? But in the same boat as all my previous clients, been on quite a long time without going on dates, typically meeting girls through social interaction, social environments, but not having luck recently. So Rodney reached out to me around October time, and we had a very in-depth coaching call. And on that call, we uncovered a lot of pain that he was going through as far as not having the dates that he wants, as far as not having the luck that he wants with women. And he's actually somebody similar to Ian, one of my previous clients, who already had experience with cold approach. And that actually ended up working against him during our immersion, which I'm going to get into. But yeah, so when we decided we were going to work together, he paid his deposit back in October, and we scheduled our coaching experience for November, for last weekend. So in the lead up to the immersion, I remember I sent him over a bunch of resources, videos from myself, live streams for myself. He also watched a ton of Christian's content to get his mindset in the right place for a coaching experience. And we had a lot of back and forth over WhatsApp, on voice notes, on texts, where he would be asking me a lot of questions. There were a lot of self-limiting beliefs that he was working through on the lead up to his immersion. And this is very typical for my clients. I'm used to my clients having these self-limiting beliefs. Am I not tall enough? Am I not good looking enough? Will the women respond to me correctly? Oh, I've tried cold approach in the past. It hasn't worked for me. These are very typical, I don't want to say excuses, but things that, issues that clients bring up to me. Now, when we rocked up to New York City, so I'll give it from my perspective first. I noticed it was extremely cold out there, at least for what I'm used to being from the West Coast. It was very cold, so I had to buy myself a big parka jacket. And the scheduling was a bit off because I was ready to go around 12 p.m. on Friday, and he was taking his bus from where he lives to the city, and it was a bit delayed. So he got there. He was ready to go for coaching around 2:30 p.m. is when we started. It's not a bad time. It's just that around 4:30, 4:45 p.m. is when stuff starts to get dark in New York City, and so we were working with limited time on Friday. And so when he rocked up, I remember the first thing is we didn't have time to get acquainted because we didn't want to waste any daylight. So we were chatting to each other as we were walking the streets. The first thing I did is I mic'd him up. And just like all of my previous clients, they always ask me, do we have to do it right here in the middle of the sidewalk where everybody could see me? Can't we dip off somewhere where it's a little more concealed and secluded? And I go, no, we're doing it right here. We're micing you up like an FBI agent right here because this is part of the coaching. The fact that you're worried about what these people think of you is part of the problem, is part of the reason why your approaches thus far haven't led anywhere and you're not having success in this area of your life. It's because you think that everything needs to be a secret, and it doesn't. And in fact, what he found out really quickly is these people that were passing by, they didn't even care about him. As they were watching me thread the mic up his shirt and clip it to his collar, yeah, I'm making him look like a proper undercover agent. He looked around and I'm pointing people out and I'm like, look, they made eye contact for 2 seconds and they kept walking. They really don't care. And so that was the first part of his coaching, was realizing and embracing that the spotlight effect is only as real as you make it. And in reality, these people around us, they're just worried about their own day, their own problems, their own needs. They don't care about what we're doing. They have no context in their mind that this guy, Rodney, came to New York City for a cold approach coaching immersion and he's going to go chat up all these girls. They have no idea. Even if they did, they probably wouldn't care anyways. So the first thing we did after I mic'd him up is I showed him the wraparound stop. Keep this in mind because this was a big sticking point for Rodney during his coaching. I showed him how I stop women, how you have seen, if you're familiar with my content, how you've seen me do it in my videos, where oftentimes I'll let them pass me, I'll double back, I'll get in front of them, and I make it look easy, don't get me wrong, but beneath the surface you'll realize there's actually a lot of practice that went into that. Learning how to do it properly, learning how to not startle the girl, learning how to be loud and be clear with my intentions. And so that was the first thing that I showed Rodney how to do, is how to stop the girl properly. So I showed it, I demonstrated on him about 5 times, and then I let him demonstrate on me about 10 times, just going up and down the streets of New York City until he had to stop to a point where I thought, this is effective, this is going to work. So one big plus for Rodney is he took absolutely 0 time to get into set. I even started a timer, and I had to stop the timer at 2 minutes and 15 seconds because he was already into his first approach, which I was very impressed by. I thought it would take him longer. Most of my clients, it takes them 5, 10, 15 minutes to get into their first approach. It took him no longer than 3 minutes to get into his first approach. Very impressive. Now, the thing is, he threw all of the immediate feedback out of the window. So all of this time we had practiced the stop. The first few approaches he went in for, he did what I consider to be the front stop. I'm not against it, but the way that he was going about it was very jerky and very erratic is the best phrase to use. So when he saw a girl that he liked, he'd be quite close to parallel before he sprung out of nowhere and tried to get in front of her very quickly and choppily, and then started rambling, excuse me, how you look this, I like your outfit, and then he just went on this tangent. So very quickly I realized that the first thing that Rodney needed to fix was, one, how he was going about stopping the girl. So being able to do it in a slow but very clear way. There's no rush. There's no rush to get in front of the girl. The rush, if there's any time to rush, it should be when you're trying to catch up to her. But when you're actually positioning yourself in front of her, there's no need to rush. And then the second thing was how fast he was talking, so the pacing. So you'll see this because I spoke with Rodney privately, and he's agreed to let me use his clips for demonstration so you can see another one of my clients in action. But you'll see on his day one footage that he was like a minigun. He was like an AK-47U for my Black Ops fan. He was just firing away at the girl. I like your outfit. So I'm from here. Where are you from? Yeah, I like this. Wow, I like the color of this. The pattern is cool. That's what caught my eye. And he would just go on this 30-second tangent where he's just firing away words at the girl, and she's like receiving them all, and he wouldn't even let her have a chance to speak. Now, again, I didn't criticize Rodney for this. I didn't laugh at him for this. I know why he was doing this. The same reason why most guys do. The reason why pacing is a big issue for most beginners is because you're worried that if you speak slowly, there's a chance that the girl may walk away. And there is. Yeah, and that's the entire point. So when you're speaking to the girl, the reason why you allow space in the conversation is because for a girl that's just not interested, already taken, in a rush, doesn't want to chat to you, she will just eject immediately. She'll grab onto the silence that you allow and she'll just excuse herself. And that's what we want. And for a beginner, that feels harsh because they classify this as a rejection and they go, oh no, I didn't have a 2+ 5+ minute conversation with a girl. That must mean blank. That must mean I'm a piece of shit. That must mean I don't know what I'm doing. In reality, it just means she's not interested, and that's okay. But when you get in front of a girl that does not eject, when you allow space in the conversation, then that's a clear indication she actually wants to continue chatting to you, especially if the context is, you look so gorgeous, you look so amazing, blank. If you've given her a hard-hitting compliment and she stood there talking to you, flirting with you, then there's no need to rush it. Yeah, so that was a big sticking point for Rodney on day one. Now, as we were going down the streets of New York City, we spent most of our time on this street called Broadway Street. Go figure. Yeah, a very busy area of New York, very busy strip. And the first day, we didn't make a whole lot of headway because every time he would do a wraparound stop, I would give him some coaching. But if the girl didn't stop for him and she kept walking, he would always revert back to the front stop. And inevitably, he would be scaring the girl by how quickly he was jumping out of the woodworks. So he and I'd be walking shoulder to shoulder. And when the girl that he liked, he clocked her, he would like jump out of nowhere and try to like, again, do this like firing away all of these words in such a condensed period of time. And he'd just be shocking the girl. So the good news is towards the end of this session, he started implementing the feedback a bit. He started doing the wraparound stop as I teach it. And what do you know? Some of the girls were stopping for him. Now, a big hang up, this is very normal for beginners, is he was cutting the girl off quite a bit. And so people don't like to speak to somebody who cuts them off, right? Who makes them kind of stumble or pivot. And so this was another sticking point was, all right, now we need to learn how to give her more space. Yeah, give her more space than you think you need. Allow the momentum with which she's walking to let her catch up to you. You don't need to cut her off and make the whole approach super abrupt and super rigid and jerky. Instead, just give her space and allow her to catch up. So anyways, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, you can feel free to click over to my infields. You'll see me demonstrating this a ton. You'll see my client Ian demonstrating this a ton. But yeah, so that was day one. So day one, we had a chat at a restaurant. I like to take my clients out for dinner after our sessions. And as we were discussing and going over the day one footage, because for those of you who know my coaching, I mic my clients up so that I can hear everything they're saying when I'm standing 20, 30 feet away. I also record their conversations with my GoPro so that we can see how they're stopping the girl and what needs to be worked out there. And so as we're going over this footage, which we do after each session, I remember speaking to Rodney about the main sticking points for the day. And there was some tension there because he really wanted to go about things how he had been doing it in the past before my coaching. And I actually gave him a bit of leeway here, which in hindsight, I wouldn't have done again, but it ended up working out in our favor. So we had a game plan for day two, which is I told him, look, for the first few approaches, I'm going to let you do your style and let's see how this works out. And by the end of day two, he completely had adopted my style, which clearly shows that he eventually did see the value and saw specifically why I teach things and why I go about things the way that I do. So on day two, I remember the first approach that he did, he was walking alongside the girl, something that I'm completely against. Yeah, I tell guys, if you can't stop her, just give up and go in for the next approach. Yeah, there's no point in walking alongside the girl, especially uninvited. Now, to his credit, this first girl didn't seem to mind that he was walking alongside her, but here's the key to focus in on, is he had about a 7-minute conversation with this girl that he walked over to. I think he said something like, I like your outfit, right? Which I tell guys, go in with a hard-hitting compliment, not something weak like I like your outfit, because it's very tepid. There's no directness there. That's essentially the same as, oh, I need some directions, and going in a very indirect way. Now, let's just put our balls on the table. Let's be real about why we're coming up to her. But he went in with this, I like your outfit kind of an approach, and they started walking down the streets for about 7 minutes. And in 7 minutes time, he made zero headway. So if the goal here with my coaching is teaching guys how to get over their fear, be direct and walk over to women and tell them what they want, and then eventually line up dates with the women that they're compatible with, he was not getting any closer to that objective of lining up a date. Because by minute 6, he finally started to say something like, well, anyways, I've had fun chatting with you. I want to take you out, or something along these lines. And then she drops on him that she already has a boyfriend. So he wasted 7 minutes in what could have been accomplished in a 20-second conversation. Because had he walked over and just stopped the girl and say, you look amazing, she probably would have told him right then and there, oh, thank you so much, but I already have a boyfriend. And then he could have walked over to the next girl. So not wasted any time in this meaningless conversation. Now again, to his credit, for a beginner, any social contact, any sort of social momentum can be positive. But Rodney is already a social guy. He was already chatting to people as we were walking up and down the streets. He had no problem being social. So although he classifies himself as introverted, I actually saw him as having no problem getting into conversation. So that's what I told him is you have no problem chatting to people. There's no need to waste 7 minutes of your time that could have been spent in other conversations finding girls that were single and were actually interested in you, rather than stroking your ego and making you feel as though you're making progress because a cute girl is talking to you as you walk alongside her down the streets of New York City. So after doing that a few more times, so a couple more where he tried to walk alongside the girl, a couple more where he front stopped and she was a bit startled, finally I pulled Rodney aside and I said, look, man, and one of the things that caused me to really pull him aside was then after that wasn't working, right? He was getting blown out doing his style that he really suggested, please let me do my style. Then he started to tell me about how the area that he was in, right? This is a bit classy for me. It's a bit too high class. And to his credit, we were in this area called Soho. So we eventually moved out of there to a more like stylish, middle class kind of an area. But to his credit, Soho did seem a bit upper class. But this is when I pulled him aside and I said, look, Rodney, mate, the reason why we're not making progress is because you're trying to hang on to this old school PUA style that you've been taught 5 or 6 years ago, whenever it was that he was implementing this style. And you're getting no closer to lining up dates using this indirect, tepid, half-hearted kind of a style. Yeah, and I was referencing my client Ian a ton. I was going, there's a lot of similarities between you and Ian. You're both data analysts, you're both introverted, and you both have this, or at least Ian in the past, had this like fear of going direct. Same with me, right? This fear of actually putting your balls on the table and just telling the girls what you want. Hey, I'm here because I like you. I'm here because you look incredible. So what's up? I'm Rodney. Yeah, I'm new to New York. What's up? And just having the context of the conversation start with that direct pillar, that polarizing pillar. It makes a world of a difference. And so I remember pulling him aside and we had this 5-minute, it wasn't even a dialogue, it was more of a monologue where I was just talking at him and I was going, dude, the reason why you want to go to easier environments where there are fewer people, where the people are less high class, where there's less eyeballs on you, the reason why you want to do this walk alongside or this quick front stop or this indirect compliment about I like your outfit is the same reason why you booked in this coaching with me. It's because the way that you're going about things is not getting you results. That's why you asked me for help. So you have to allow me to teach you what it is that I do and what I've taught my other clients. Yeah, the clients that you've seen on my channel, such as Ian, which is why I'm so glad that Ian allowed me to post his coaching journey so that he can see firsthand what it looks like when a guy actually follows my direction and implements my feedback. And so this was a very pivotal moment in day 2 because I remember I even demonstrated one of my stops for Rodney as we were walking down the street. There was an approach that he didn't go in for, and I said, look here, hold the GoPro. Let me just show you what I mean. And so, to be fair, I demonstrated a few other stops on day 1. So Rodney got to see me get properly blown out back to back to back, which I love. But on day 2, this one approach that I did for him after I gave him this monologue of like, you have to be coachable. You told me you would be coachable on that coaching call. This is what I mean. All right. You have to throw out all of the stuff that you want to do that you've been doing up until this point, because that stuff is not working. That's why you've hired me to help you. All right. So you have to listen to the feedback and actually work on implementing it. And I could tell that I was really getting through to him because there was definitely a moment of tension there. But eventually he's nodding and he's saying, I get it. All right, I understand. I'm going to implement the feedback. But I remember I demonstrated to him um, a proper stop, a proper hard hitting compliment, and just the whole sequence that you've seen in my infields. And it's just so funny because the first girl that I happened to walk up to that day stopped for me, right? It wasn't the most perfect stop. I remember I had to backpedal a bit, but she stopped for me. Loved the compliment that I gave her. We had a quick 4-minute chat or so. And then I told her I want to take her out, took her details down, set up the date, right? Obviously, just for demonstration. I wasn't actually planning on going on the date, but I was looking over her shoulder and I saw Rodney. He was watching the entire thing happen, and I think the gears in that moment really started to turn, because I remember I walked over to him. I showed him the contact details of the girl that I just met, that he watched me meet, and then I pressed delete contact right in front of him, just to show him that I wasn't in New York City to brag to him about what I can do. I was there to teach him what I can do, right? That's the entire point of the coaching. And so that was a very pivotal moment, because I remember after that approach, he started really implementing the feedback. And so after that, we were flying. And I remember as soon as I showed him that demonstration, the very next girl, he implemented a proper wraparound stop. He gave her space. And what do you know? She stopped for him. And he gave her a proper hard-hitting compliment, and she engaged with him. And this is a cool 5-6 minute conversation. I don't think it led anywhere after that. But the fact is, he finally got a taste of what happens when you implement the feedback, the playbook that I was trying to teach him. And so I was very proud in that moment. And now we started to have stuff to coach on, right? Because I can't really help coach a guy if he's not actually listening to what I'm saying. But now that he was implementing feedback, now we got to critique the things that he needed to fix. So he did a bunch more of these, and he was getting the stop down to a T. So on day 2, he was really starting to perfect the wraparound stop. Of course, there's always room for improvement, but the fact is, the majority of girls that he was walking over to were stopping for him, even if it was just briefly, to say, oh, thank you, but I already have a boyfriend, or thank you, but I'm not interested, or thank you, but I'm in a rush. But the fact is, they were actually stopping. Whereas on day 1, majority of girls were like pivoting past him and like avoiding him when he was trying to get in front of them. But because he was implementing the feedback, now they were starting to stop. So we reached another pivotal point in the coaching where he was able to get a lot of these girls to stop, and he was already really good at having conversation. So I was already confident in his conversation skills. But when it got time, as the conversation was starting to wind down and it got time for Rodney to actually pull the trigger and tell the girl that he wanted to take her out, he was never going for it. And so I remember we had a sit down at the Starbucks. We were going over some of the footage. This is around 3 p.m. on day 2. So we got an early start. We started at 12 p.m. on day 2. And as we were going over the footage, I went, Rodney, why didn't you ask this girl for her number? Rodney, why didn't you tell this girl that you wanted to take her out? The conversation was going well. She was receptive. She loved the compliment. Why'd you just leave it there? And naturally, just like I'm used to most beginners, the excuses started to surface, right? Oh, I wasn't that interested in her. Oh, she wasn't as pretty as I thought. Oh, I don't know, this and that. And I went, look, regardless, you don't have to take these girls out. You don't have to date these girls. You're here to practice learning how to do what I demonstrate in my videos, what Ian demonstrates in my client videos. So regardless of if you liked her, if you actually want to take her out, whatever, the point is you need to begin to practice the close so that I can coach you on it. And so he nodded, he understood what I was talking about. And so on that second half of day 2, this was like a magical part of the session, because he actually started to implement that part of the feedback as well. And what do you know? He had the stop on point, so he was getting the girls to stop. He was giving the girls more direct compliments. This was another sticking point. He oftentimes diverted back to a very platonic compliment. But on some of the occasions, he was giving her a proper compliment. And then as the conversations were going well, right, of course, some girls weren't interested. Some girls, oh, I already have a boyfriend. But of the ones who were engaging and were flirting back, he finally just went for it. And I remember, if you're watching this, Rodney, I know you remember this, that first close in that small little park area, the girl that was wearing all pink, she ended up saying she was getting her doctorate or something. So a real high level girl, right? But he walked over, proper stop, good compliment, good conversation. And the close, as expected, was a lot weaker than what you've seen me do, but that's not the point. The point is that he went for the close. Therefore, now we have conversational material to coach on. So now I can tell him, okay, this is what you said. Next time, say this. All right, next time, remove that maybe. remove that bit of hesitation there. Remove that question and just tell her you want to take her out. And so I was very proud because they exchanged contact details. I remember he was giddy. He came back to me. He was like, let's go, let's go. He was all hyped up, and so was I. And then he did that a few more times during that second part of day 2. And I think he got one more phone number, whatever it was, contact details towards the end of day 2, right? But the point is, I really could care less whether or not he's getting phone numbers, whether or not he's getting dates. At this point, what I'm most concerned about is he improving? And from the beginning of day 1, when he was jumping in front of the girl jerkily, startling her and firing away words, by the end of day 2, he had slowed down his pacing in conversation. He was getting her to stop in a more smooth, calculated way, without being forceful, without being jerky, just getting in front of her casually, projecting his voice, giving her a better compliment, and at this point, at the end of day 2, actually closing for details. All right, let me check the battery here. Cool, we're at 8%. We're going to go till my phone dies or we hit 4 p.m., whichever happens first. So at the end of day 2, of course, went to another restaurant, started going over the footage. And so the main thing for the next day to tighten up on for Rodney was once again pacing. He had done much better. He had improved a ton as far as pacing from day 1 to day 2. But there was still a lot of rapid fire portions in his conversation. And of course, this just has to do with nervousness. And he mentioned that one of his hobbies is he likes to debate. And so he mentioned that this is probably where he got some of this speed talking from, was when you're debating, you want to get your point across very quickly before the other person talks over you. But debating and flirting, two different things. Yeah, this isn't competitive. We're collaborating here. Yeah, we're finding women that like us back. There's no debate there. This is supposed to be collaborative. And so the plan for day 3 was to remove some of that rapid fire speech and to work on tightening up the close. So that was his main hang-up, which is great that was his main hang-up, because when we started the immersion, the main hang-up was that no conversation was going anywhere and barely any girls were stopping to chat romantically. It was all platonic if they were chatting. By day 2, he was getting girls to stop, but he wasn't going for the close. And then by the end of day 2, he was. So we showed up to day 3, just as expected. Rodney was firing away, no problem, yet again. Yeah, my favorite part about Rodney and his coaching is that I never had to push the guy. He was a go for it kind of guy. As soon as we started the session, he was straight into his approaches. So fair play to you, Rodney. But the main focus for day 3, and I had him repeat it to me. I was like, Rodney, what's our focus today? Yeah, it was pacing, slowing down the pacing in the conversation, and then tightening up the close and telling the girl that he wanted to take her out. So for context, what he was saying up until day 3 was something along the lines of, so can I have your number, or so can I have your Instagram, without any context of the fact that he wanted to take her out. It was just kind of like viewing the number as the trophy. I got the phone number, I got the Instagram, let's run away. And so as I know, as my clients know, as you've seen from Ian, one of my clients, that never works, or it rarely works, because in that case, the girl just thinks, oh, this guy just wanted my phone number and he was too scared to do anything else with it. And he's just going to text me and set up a date that way. And I don't teach guys how to get phone numbers. I teach guys how to get dates, right? And so that was the main focus. And he was flying with this part as well, because he began implementing the feedback. We started running into a bit of rain as well, so we had to take a break in the middle of day 3. But the fact is, the guy started going in for his approaches, was stopping the girl, so picked up right where he left off on day 2, and stopping the girl effectively, giving her a better compliment. This is still something we were working on with day 3, was he was fixating on saying something like, you look very nice, which I didn't hate, but it's not nearly as polarizing as you look fucking incredible. You look amazing. You look gorgeous, right? So I was trying to get him to give a harder hitting compliment, and in some cases he did. But he was really starting to tighten up the close, which I loved. So you'll have a bunch of footage from day 3 of Rodney in the conversations that went well, and where the girls were flirting back, he was actually taking it the distance, yeah? And he wasn't boxing himself in, saying, so, what are you doing tomorrow? Or so, can I have your number? And instead, he was actually telling the girl, so, before I leave New York, I want to take you out for drinks, or I want to take you out, blah, 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 blah. Giving a more open-ended close, a lot like what you see in my videos. So, by the end of day 3, I mean, the guy was a entirely changed person if you looked at what he was able to do on day 1 to what he was able to do by the end of day 3. I remember we went to a bar, we recorded an interview style video of his experience, so you'll get to see that eventually as well. And then we just fucking had fun. Yeah, we had some margaritas at the bar. We're throwing them back and just talking about everything aside from approach. And yeah, that was the beginning, right? As I tell my clients, the immersion is just the beginning, because as you know, as I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, I've got a call with him scheduled after this. So we've got weekly calls where I make sure to hold him accountable so that he doesn't slide back to who he was before our coaching. And he continues to practice this skill set until he's consistently lining up dates, just like Ian. Yeah, just like you'll hear from Ian soon on our joint live stream. So Rodney, if you are watching this, mate, I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud of the progress that you made. And just remember to lean into the group and use the group for accountability. That is your biggest superpower now, aside from your approach, is not letting yourself off the hook. It is not going a week and 2 weeks without any approaching and saying, oh, it's because of the weather. Oh, it's because I'm tired right now. It's because work is busy. No, you have to intentionally force this skill set into your life until it becomes literally second nature. You've already blasted past your approach anxiety, your fear of doing this. You've already refined the technique. You know what to do, how to stop her, how to compliment her, and how to go about exchanging details and setting up a date. Now it's about practicing that and refining it until it's literally second nature, until you couldn't lose this skill set even if you tried. And I'm going to be in your corner every step of the way, trying to make sure that you stay accountable, and yeah, we get you those dates that you're after, mate, because you're not as far as you think. Yeah, and as you know, we'll discuss this on our call, but yeah, just pacing and pacing and that close are the main hangups right now. But yeah, aside from that, I mean, changed man. I couldn't be more proud of the guy. I'm just excited once we get to the point where Rodney's sending testimonials similar to Ian about, dude, I just had this date, I just had that date, blah, blah, blah. I met this girl here. And you'll get to see some of his success, because I know it's right around the corner. As long as you continue practicing your skill set and you continue applying what you've learned, then yeah, the sky's the limit, mate. So no, well done. Well done. We're at 2%, so I'm going to end the live stream before the phone dies. But appreciate you as always. Link in the description if you want to apply for coaching.